A little more than a week ago, I made a video showing you how to install the Oobabooga TextGeneration-webui, but unfortunately just a few days later they changed the installation process, making my previous video completely obsolete. Great, thanks. So I simply decided to make an updated video just for you. Let's hope this video stays relevant a bit longer this time. Hello humans, my name is AI Overload, and in this video I'm gonna very quickly show you how to install the Oobabooga TextGeneration-webui, go over the most common errors and how to solve them, and at the end I will show you how to use the WebUI even if you don't have a powerful computer, and all of that for absolutely free. Now I'm gonna mix in some clips from the previous video I did on the subject, so if you haven't watched it yet, I will show you the same thing in this video. So let's not waste any more time and let's go. Now my previous video is not exactly completely obsolete, because if you want to use the old installation guide, instead of using the Oobabooga TextGeneration-webui GitHub page, you'll be using this one, click installers instead. So basically if you want to follow the previous installation, you're gonna simply click the link in the description down below, you're gonna arrive on this page, and here you're gonna click on code, and then download the zip, and then follow the exact same installation that I showed you in my previous video. And now let's actually do the updated installation. So once you arrive on the Oobabooga TextGeneration-webui page, you're gonna scroll down until you see the one-click installers, and then you're gonna click on the Oobabooga Windows the zip link, and this will download the zip archive onto your computer. So then once you have the zip archive, you're gonna extract it. So you're gonna right click and then click on extract. Then in the Oobabooga Windows folder, you're gonna see a bunch of files, and just in case you don't know what you're doing, you have here an instructions, the text file that basically tells you exactly what you need to know to correctly install the WebUI. But all you need to do now to start the installation is just double click on the start windows.bat file. And if you get this following error that says this script relies on Miniconda, which cannot be silently installed under a path with spaces, all that means is that you need to pay attention to the folder path name. Because for example, in my case, look at what you see here, I have a new folder called new Ooba, which has a space in the name. And this is a no-go. So if you want to install the Oobabooga correctly, you need to rename that folder to make sure that there is no space in the name. So very simply, all you have to do is just go back to that folder. In here, instead of having a folder called new Ooba, I'm gonna delete that space and then replace it with an underscore. So I'm gonna have something like new underscore Ooba and then press enter. And now if I go again inside the folder and then double click on the start windows.bat file again, now it's gonna start installing all the files that it needs to run the WebUI. Now for this, you need to be patient because it's gonna take some time, and then it's gonna ask you what is your GPU. So here you're gonna select what is your GPU, if you have an NVIDIA GPU, an AMD, an Apple M series, or if you want to run this in CPU mode, which by the way I don't necessarily recommend because it often creates a lot of issues. But if you don't have a good GPU and you really want to run it locally, you can of course select this option. But in my case, since I have an NVIDIA 3090, I'm gonna select A and then press enter. And then it's gonna start downloading all the files that it needs to run. Now be patient because it's gonna take some time. And there you go, after a few minutes it has finished downloading all the files that it needs. And for me it took around 10 minutes, so it might be shorter or longer for you depending on your internet connection. And then it's gonna ask you what model you want to download. Because yes, the WebUI is just a WebUI to run an LLM model. But for this, you need an LLM model to run. Now you can either select one of the models that they give you right here, which are not that bad, or you can manually specify a Hugging Face model. And this is the option that you're gonna use to download a model. And currently there are 3 models that I suggest you to download. The first one, and probably the most powerful one, is the Vicuña 13 billion parameters 1.5 model, 4-bit version, which is a super powerful local LLM model that is probably one of the most powerful LLM model that you can run locally right now. I also made a video about this model a few weeks ago, so if you haven't watched it, definitely check it out. But the problem is, although this model is very powerful, it is unfortunately a censored model, which is where the GPT-4 Alpaca comes into play, which is also a super powerful LLM model, but this time it is completely uncensored. And again, if you want to check it out, if you want to see what kind of things you can do with this model, I highly suggest that you watch my previous video on the subject. And if you're interested in a model that is specialized for conversation and spicy roleplay, in that case I highly suggest the Pygmalion LLM model, which is actually the model that I use the most often because of how good it is when it comes to conversation. And of course I also made a video about that model, so again if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend that you do. And for this example I'm actually gonna download the Pygmalion model right now, and to do this is very simple. You're gonna come here on this page, click on this little icon right here to copy this entire name, and then back in the command prompt window, you're gonna type L, which corresponds to manually specify a Hugging Face model, then press enter, and then you're gonna press Ctrl V to paste the full name that we just copied, and then you're gonna press enter. And as you can see, it will start automatically downloading all the files that it needs to run the model. And there you go, after a few minutes, the model is downloaded, and the WebUI is ready to be used. It's gonna give you a local URL that if you want to open, you can just hold Ctrl and then left click. And there we go, now we are done. Now again, you will see here a bunch of options. You have the text generation tab, where you can have a conversation with your bot. You have the character tab, where you can create or upload already made characters with different names and personalities. You have the parameters tab, where you have here a bunch of presets that you can use to change the generation parameters. And you have here an explanation for each parameters and what they do and how it influences the final results. Then you have the model tab, where you'll be able to select your model if you have multiple models installed or even a text LoRa that you downloaded or created yourself. Then you have the training tab, where you can train a LoRa from your own data. And finally the interface mode, where you can download and activate a bunch of extensions and also a bunch of flags, and where you can change the interface of the WebUI to something completely different. Also, each time that you download a model, they will be located in the models folder, which is located in text-generation-webui and then models. And as you can see, this is where all of your models will be located. So if you want to change anything or delete a model that you don't use, you're gonna have to come into this folder right here. Also, next time that you want to update the WebUI, all you have to do is just double click on the update windows.bat file. And this will make sure that you're running the latest version of the WebUI. Now, one common error that you might see when using the WebUI is the CUDA out of memory error. And all that means is that your GPU doesn't have enough VRAM to run the operation. But fortunately, there is a quick fix. And the quick fix is to use the pre-layer argument, which is basically an option that allows you to split the model between the VRAM and the RAM. So pre-layer is the number of layers that the model will load into the memory. So the more layers you have in VRAM, the faster your GPU will be able to run the model. But that also means that the more layers you have, the more VRAM it's gonna use. Now, most LLM models have around 40 layers in total, with each layer requiring around 0.222 megabytes of memory, which means that if you have a 6GB VRAM GPU, you can only input 25 layers, which should work, but will be very slow. And to be able to use that argument, all you need is just run the WebUI, then go to models, and here you will see the pre-layer option, where you can input a number right here. Now obviously this number will depend on the amount of VRAM that you have, and also depending on the system, this number can also greatly vary. But in general, if you have a 6GB VRAM card, you would put a pre-layer number between 20 and 25. If you have an 8GB VRAM card, you would probably put it between 27 and 30. If you have a 10GB card, you're probably gonna input a number around 35, and more if you have a 12GB VRAM. And then once you're done, do not forget to reload the model, and maybe also save the settings so that each time that you load this model, every parameters will be applied automatically. Now, one thing that you can also do, but that is only when you're not running a 4-bit version of a model, is to run a model in 8-bit. Which will of course make the generation slower, but will also greatly decrease the amount of VRAM used. Now obviously if you're running a 4-bit version of a model, this option is of course useless, so only check this option when you're running a full version of a model, and not a quantized version. Now also make sure that the max new tokens is not too high, because the higher the number, the more VRAM it's gonna use. So definitely play around a little bit with the parameter, depending on your system. Okay, so most common error number 2, CPU allocator error. So this basically just means that you don't have enough virtual memory to run the operation. Now the virtual memory is basically a way for your computer to pretend that it has more memory than it actually has, which allows you to run programs that require more memory than your physical memory can provide. And solving this issue is actually very simple. All you need to do is just go to your startup menu, then type SystemPropertiesAdvanced.exe. I will leave this command in the description down below. Then you're gonna click on it. Then in Advanced, under Performance, you're gonna click on Settings. In the Performance options, you're gonna again click on Advanced. Under Virtual Memory, you're gonna click on Change. Then you're gonna uncheck Automatically Manage Paging File Size for all drives, and then leave it for System Manage Size. And then click OK. And then it's gonna ask you to restart your computer. And there you go. So just by increasing your virtual memory, not only you could potentially increase the performance of your computer, but this should also solve the CPU allocator error. So that's pretty cool. And now hopefully all of these little tricks will allow you to run the WebUI without issue. But again, if for some reason you still get errors, and again I highly suggest you to search for your issue on the GitHub page for the Oobabooga TextGeneration-webui. This should always be the go-to for you to quickly solve your issues. Okay, so now let's say that no matter what you do, you just cannot run this on your computer. It's either not powerful enough, or you get too many errors, or you just don't have a computer at all. Is there a way to run this WebUI for free even if I don't have a computer? Well, yes, there is. Because for this, we'll be using a simple Google Colab doc, which will allow you to run the WebUI online and download any model that you want, exactly as if this was running on your local computer. And I'm actually gonna say that if you don't have a 12GB GPU, this should, in theory, be way faster for you. So I highly recommend you that you try it out. And to use it, it is super simple. First, you're gonna scroll down and you're gonna click on the first Run Cell button. And when it asks you if you want to run this notebook, you're gonna click on Run anyway. So then it's gonna give you a music player and you're gonna press on the play button, which will play a silent sound that will allow you to keep this tab open so that the Google Colab doc does not boot you out. So then you're gonna scroll down and here, if you want to save the conversation for later, you can check this box that says Save Logs to Google Drive, which, well, as its name implies, will save the logs onto your own personal Google Drive so that you can continue the conversation where you left off. Now in this example I'm not gonna use it, so I'm just gonna uncheck it. You can also check this button to save everything to Google Drive, which will make it way faster for you to load the WebUI next time, because all the models will be already downloaded and present on your Google Drive. Then you're gonna leave this by default, and then click on the second Run Cell button. So then, after a few minutes, once it has downloaded all the files that it needs, just when you try to install it on your local computer, it's gonna ask you to download a model. And here you have either the choice of downloading the Vicuña model, the GPT-4 Alpaca model, or the Facebook OPT model. But just like I showed you earlier in the video, you can download any model that you want. Because for example, let's say that I want to download the Pygmalion AI model. All you need is just come here, click on this little button to copy this entire name. Then for the model download, you're gonna select this entire line, and then you're gonna press Ctrl V to paste this entire name. And then all you need to do is just click on the Run Cell button. And as you can see, in this case, it will start automatically downloading the Pygmalion model. And there you go, very quickly it has downloaded the Pygmalion model, and then it's gonna ask you which model that you want to load. And for this, all you need to do is just select here the full name of the folder, Ctrl-C to copy it, then you're gonna select this line, and then Ctrl-V to replace it. Then, for this model, you're gonna leave everything else by default, and then click on this Run Cell button. And there you go, now everything is done. And now if I click on this public URL, you see that we are now running the Oobabooga TextGeneration-webui using a very simple Google Colab doc. And now you can have conversation with any character that you want for absolutely free. And if you want to know what kind of conversations you can have, well, I highly suggest that you watch my previous video on the subject. Because yes, now there's absolutely no limit. Nothing is stopping you from having spicy conversations. So yeah, there you go. Now I think that no matter who you are, you should be able to use the Oobabooga TextGeneration-webui either on your local computer or on any devices for absolutely free. So definitely try this out. And there you have it, folks. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Thank you also so much to my Patreon supporters for supporting my videos. You guys are absolutely awesome. You people are the one who support me so I can make these videos for you, so thank you so much. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.